I'm Catherine.
And I'm Gail, and welcome to Women Over 70, Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast, celebrating 5 years, 300 episodes, and 400,000 downloads. Visit womenover70.com to learn about all our offerings and how you may become involved. Consider joining Aging Reimagined Circle. As a member, enjoy free participation in our online monthly programs. So thank you for listening.
Today, we are very excited to have special guests, Karen Allen and Sarah Schwab. Karen Allen is an award-winning actor, director of stage and film, collaborates with Sarah Schwab, writer, director, and producer, on films about the nature of grief, loss, and love as persons enter the final chapters of their lives. The mission of their highly successful film, A Stage of Twilight, written by and directed by Sarah and starring Karen, is to create, and I quote, a groundbreaking grassroots awareness campaign for end-of-life care and decisions. Karen's directorial debut, a short film, A Tree, a Rock, a Cloud, is about the passing of wisdom from an older man to a younger boy. It was adapted from a short story by Carson McCullers. And in 2025, Karen will be directing her first narrative feature film, The Batting Cage. Sarah is part of the producing team for The Batting Cage, and Sarah is also in post-production phase of her third feature film, Crybaby Bridge. So welcome Karen Allen and Sarah Schwab to Women Over 70. So let's begin by having you just tell us a bit about the story behind the collaboration, your collaboration. How did you two come together?
Oh, gosh. Shall I start?
Yeah.
Matt, I don't know how many, I'm going to say, could it be 15, 12, something like that years ago? Yeah. I was in New York City to do a beautiful, beautiful play called A Summer Day at the Cherry Lane Theater in New York City. And Sarah's partner in Cardinal Films, Brian Long, was producing that play. And so I got to know him quite well and got also to meet and get to know Sarah during that time period. And she was talking to me about some ideas she had for plays. And we got talking about end-of-life issues. My parents were both teetering on, really starting to have to, having medical issues that they were struggling with. And she had lost her father sometime earlier. And we had a very interesting conversation, which was the beginning of her starting to work on a piece that was going to be a play and then became a play that I did many, many, many readings of. And we workshopped it at some theaters. And eventually, over time, it became the film A Stage of Twilight, which Sarah directed, and I'm in with the actor Bill Sadler. And we play a couple who's been together for about 40 years, and his health is failing, and we're having to deal with those issues in the film.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
It is a wonder. I watched the film. It's very powerful. Very powerful. Sarah, do you want to add anything to the story of your collaboration?
Yeah. It was really beautiful. When I met Karen, I had just been introduced to the theater scene. I had always been a prose writer and a journalist primarily. And when I met my partner, Brian Long, who had been friends with Karen with Rattlestick Playwrights Theater in New York City, which is the play that Karen was talking about. I really didn't understand the power of theater. And I'm, a poor, young kid just out of college. And I just went to everything that I possibly could. So I started just kind of volunteering at Rattlestick so that I could help learn. And I got to see a lot of amazing work. And I met extraordinary talent, including Karen Allen. And so when we started talking about this issue, My dad got sick when I was 15 years old, battling cancer. He died when I was 21, and I'm from just outside of Buffalo, New York, and we're very like blue collar, sturdy people. And he did so much for the community, and he was a pillar and had so many friends. And so to see him go from this robust, kind, well, he's always kind, but this robust human being, and then wither through the disease, and eventually lost him. It shook me. And I wanted to pay homage to that story and to him. And I also wanted to pay homage to the love between my mom and my dad, who had been together for over 40 years. And so when I was talking with Karen about this idea, and Karen, you thought that it would be an interesting subject to collaborate on, I was like, okay, cool. Now I can do this.
Yeah.
That's the remarkable story. And Karen, you said that your own parents, are they both deceased at this point?
Yeah, they've both passed away, and my sister has passed away. I lost both my parents and my sister within about a 1.5 year period of time.
So I know you both have done extensive work on many other topics and themes, but what is it? Do you have anything more you'd like to say about the nature of grief and loss and love? What you've kind of gained from being involved in these efforts?
Yeah. I would say, the play that I referenced, A Summer Day, was about loss. And I played a character who had lost her soulmate, and she can't quite get over it. And she kind of ruminates, wondering if she had done something slightly different in her life, if things might have turned out differently. So I every night I stood in front of the audience. I had a lot of monologues in the piece, and I would look out at an audience of about 300 people, and I would talk about this character's loss. But what was so extraordinary is that I came to understand very quickly that there was not a single person I talked to on any given night who had not experienced loss. And I began to deeply understand what a universal it is and how it ties all of us together. And none of us escape the experience of loss. Each story is an individual and profound story, and yet all of us share in this experience and will continue to share in this experience as long as we're alive. And, I think it for me, that was a real moment there was a profoundness to that experience for me. And Sarah and I had this conversation along the same time, and I feel again, here it is. I did this film with Sarah, Stage of Twilight, which is another story of loss. And we were on the we did film festivals for a year, this last year, a little bit before that. I don't know how many, but there were a lot of them. And we talked to a lot of audiences after the film. And again, this sense of this universal shared experience. It is something that profoundly ties us together as human beings. And so it's in a sense, something that it feels like such a meaningful subject to dive into artistically and humanistically. And I guess that's all I have to say. It's been a very great part of the last few years of my life to be with groups of people talking about loss.
Sarah, do you want to?
And it's connecting. I think Karen, to piggyback off what you're saying, it's a connecting experience. However one has a loss, and whomever the loss is, when you talk with people, I think that with our shared discussions with our film and other films, it helps people not feel so alone, and that we are all sharing or going to share this experience. And sometimes that's hard for people to talk about, which is totally respectable or respectful. I respect that. But the idea that you're not alone, I think that's the most beautiful thing that can come out of shared loss. I mean, we're only alive so long until they make, I don't know, gadgets to make us live forever. But,
right. It's a universal happening that everyone experiences loss. And it's just.
It also, I love the aspect that it helps you understanding this. It helps you understand the moments of levity and love even more and appreciate those moments, or try to, because there's this great quote from Bernard Shaw. Anyways, it's just about, we have this light for a limited time. And, when I'm going on my deathbed, I want to look back at my life and to know that it's shone brightly. And I always love that. So like every moment, every person you decide to spend your time with, creatively, friendship wise, whatever, that's really important. That's my 2 cents.
That's valuable 2 cents. Thank you. When I watched the film, Stage of Twilight, I'm just so curious about how you set up the dilemma between Cora and Barry. And what is it, Cora? Am I remembering her name correctly? So without giving away the whole story, because we want people to watch the film, it struck me so how each of them wanted to protect the other as Barry was facing his death. And what prompted you, Sarah, to frame it that way? And then Karen, what was it like for you to play that character?
So as I said, it's loosely based on my father dying and the love between my parents. But I also have somebody very close to me while I was kind of writing this, who basically said, if I ever get sick, it's over. And it's that was really hard for me. And I was like, well, it's not over. I'm going to be with you until the end. And they didn't agree with that. And so it was just that opposition and that conversation that we had, which was really difficult for me. And I just I got so angry, and I wrote the whole first scene of the stage play at the time. And then I kept thinking about it. I'm like, well, they're not wrong, but I'm not wrong either. And so what is the right decision? Whose right is it to decide how, when, where, with whom you spend your last moments? And that was a really interesting conflict for me to explore with Karen, who was very, very helpful with that process.
Yeah, it's the ultimate question, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Karen, for you?
Well, I mean, what came up again and again and again as we showed this film at festivals is this question of whose death is it? Mm-hmm. And I had, just by way of almost coincidence or chance, during the years we were working on this play, and it was a long period of years where Sarah would go off and work on it, and then we'd do readings. And I had 2 friends who behaved in this exact fashion. They were very close friends of mine. And when they first of all, they kept their illnesses completely secret from everyone, from all their friends and their family even. And when they got very, very close to death, they both decided, this is two separate people in two separate times, but they both decided they wanted to see no one. They wanted to die alone, and they wouldn't let any of their friends or family come to see them. And from my perspective, it was excruciating. I always would have hoped to be sitting by my friend's side, with no expectations, holding their hand or just being present in the room to, somehow soften or guide but that was not their decision. And I went through my own kind of private hell both times in terms of struggling with, well, first of all, why would someone make this decision? I don't feel like I really quite understand it. But with just the letting go process, not so much of letting go as we all do when someone we care deeply about dies, but letting go of the idea that I had been part of their life. And so it seemed to follow that I should also be able to be a part of death. But they didn't want that, and I had to accept it. And I have to say, it was not an easy so I had that to bring to Cora, those actually personal experiences, which made it much easier to really get to the core of her struggle. And these were friends. In a stage of Twilight, this is a man she's been married to for 40 years. And I don't think it ever occurred to her that he would want to separate from her and not stay with her to the moment that he passed. But these are decisions that don't get talked about very much, and we've discovered in talking with audiences that this is not that uncommon. It's not wildly common, but many people experience this with their friends and family.
Wow. Yes. It's I knew someone personally who did that, who for a year or so told nobody that she was so ill, and that she was on her deathbed really for a long time. And it was so hard, even their children. And it was so hard on the children and all their friends, just as you stated, to not be a part of that, since they were friends for 50, 60 years, or their children, of course, were there their whole life.
It feels like a betrayal. When it first happens, it feels like, but wait, don't we have this agreement? We're friends. Am I not always going to be able to be there with you? And it turns out that some people think, no, you're not this matter.
Right. You can't do that.
So do you want to tell us I'm switching gears a bit here. Do you want to tell us a bit, Karen, about A Tree, a Rock, a Cloud? And I've seen the trailer, and it seems to be a very touching story between the older man and the young boy.
Beautiful story. I read this story when I was 18 or 19 years old. I was a big fan of Carson McCullers. I got introduced to her by reading The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. And then I wanted to read everything she'd ever written. And I came upon her short stories. And then I came upon this short story. And I was captivated by it to such an extent that I just carried it around with me for years and years and years. And I always felt like maybe I'll do something in the theater, or I'll pair it with something and make a theater piece out of it. And then Brian Long, again, who we've talked about earlier, he started saying to me, why don't you direct a film? Why don't you direct a film? And I said, I've worked on so many films, I can't pretend for a minute that I don't understand how hard it is. Then he would say, well, if you did direct a film, what film would you want to direct? And I said, well, I'd want to start with a short film, first of all, because I would like something very simple. Well, this story has really just three main characters in it. It takes place mostly in one little cafe. I added some scenes outside that are not in the story itself. But it was the one story. Somehow I felt like my whole life I wanted to tell. And not very many people had ever heard of it or read it.
Didn't you read it to like people that stayed over at your house?
I did. I used to read it out loud to people. It's only 11 pages long. So, but it's about the nature of love and the passing of wisdom from an old man to a young boy, about how he grew up believing that love is something outside of oneself that you look for and acquire and hold on to. And in the story, he reveals that what he's discovered is that love resides inside, and that love is about giving love outwardly and allowing love to come to you and reside with you. And this is has had a profound effect on his life. And he's trying to tell a 12-year-old boy this story in the hopes of possibly protecting him from making the same mistakes he's made. And they're complete strangers. And they meet one morning in the 1940s in a little roadside cafe. And they just by chance have this encounter, and he tells him this story. And it's a beautiful short story. And I feel like we made it into a really beautiful film. And we took it off to film festivals, and it won Best International Film at the very first festival we went to in England. And it got quite a bit of attention, and was just a real joy to make and to show to people. And it's going to be actually shown in New York on the 29th of October to celebrate Carson McCullers. There's a documentary film that's now been made about her life, and it's having a premiere in New York, and they're going to use Tree Racket Cloud as the opening film.
Nice.
And we just happened, by complete coincidence, to shoot the film and make the film as it was becoming Carson McCullers' 100th anniversary. So we got to take it all over the world and show it in celebration of 100 years since her birth. And it turns out that she's actually more respected and held as a master by other countries all over the world than she is really appreciated here in the United States. At this point in time. I mean, certainly there was a time maybe in the 40s and 50s where she was quite celebrated, but you talk to a lot of, college kids and stuff now, no one's ever heard of her, which horrifies me.
Yes. Understood. So, and the few minutes we have left, can you tell us a bit about the batting cage? And then also, Sarah, your upcoming film, Crybaby Bridge. What's the theme of those two films?
Do you want to talk about the batting cage?
I'll do it really quick. The Batting Cage is based on a play written by Joan Ackerman, who's a wonderful playwright. And I've known this play for a long time. I directed it once on stage. And Joan and I have talked for years about trying to make it into a film. And Brian Long, yet again, our hero.
Brian.
Found a way, raised the money for it to be done, for the screenplay to be written. And the screenplay is now finished, and we're just launching it out into the world. It's about two sisters who come together having lost their third sister a year before, and they've come together to grieve and celebrate her life and loss. And they have never really connected very deeply with each other. The sister who died was the real connector. And they have a lot to work out between each other. So it's a story of, people coming to a starting point and trying to figure out their own grief and the grief that they share and move forward.
And Sarah, tell us about Cry Baby Bridge. Is this also a love, loss, and grief film?
So I am pivoting right now in the stories that I'd like to write into the psychological thriller horror space. That's kind of my passion. I love drama, and I will continue to write drama. But so Crybaby Bridge is the first attempt for me. It's fully shot, fully edited. Post-production is done. Now we're starting to talk to distributors. The story is based on a legend that people, if they go to their internet and type in Crybaby Bridge, there will be hundreds of legends all across the United States and even internationally. It's basically a woman of the water, and all of them have the same beginning, and it's of a young woman who is unmarried, gets pregnant, cast out from her family. The person who she was with, they don't want to be with her, and she has this baby. And she goes to the local bridge, and she ends the suffering for the two of them. And that comes out in different tales. And so I took that basic urban legend, and I created a family, an interracial family who basically, a 16-year-old girl gets pregnant, bullied at school. The family decides to remove her from the situation, move from a city setting into a rural setting, and they come across one of these bridges that is haunted by the mother. And so it's talking about motherhood. It's talking about a whole bunch of different issues. So there's definitely a dramatic element to it, but I just wanted to put a little salt of, I don't know, scare into it and see how I did about it.
Very fascinating. Fascinating. So I would, our audience, our listeners are mainly women in their 60s, 70s, and well beyond. And are there any messages that you'd like to share with our audience about growing older in our later decades?
Let's see. Well, I don't know. I feel as passionate and tuned into life as I did when I was in my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. I mean, the body ages a little. I've got a little arthritis here and there. I can't, do maybe as many yoga postures as I used to be able to do. I can't, there's certain things I feel like I've had to slow down in certain ways and make a commitment to look after myself in ways that I feel like I took for granted for many, many years. But in terms of like my passions for life and for my friendships in particular, the people I care about in my life in particular, these things just mature and get better and deeper and get more refined and defined in a way that I think is really profound. And I think there's a lot of things that I used to think were important that have fallen away. And it's not that they're not important, but they're not as important. And I feel like I can focus more and more on, one does have that sense of time, of the clock ticking. So every year, every month, every day becomes newly precious in a way that I think in my younger years I totally took for granted. And now I really have a new sort of profound respect for time and for mostly people in my life. People is what really matters. And then getting things done, I still care about that, but it's it's in a balance. I'm more in balance now than I used to be.
Feeling that way, as you do, what would you tell younger women? Women in their 20s and their 30s. What would you tell Sarah?
I'm going to be turning 40, so
People to, enjoy their life. Life is precious. I just want people to, go after their dreams. I mean, there's a lot of people who I meet who, they are afraid to take the chance to do what it is they really love and what they really care about. And they're sometimes surrounded by people who dissuade them from following what they really, really believe they would be good at. And I think the main thing, my main message would just be, I have had so many people so many people have said to me, oh, being an actor, it must be such a terrible profession. And I'm like, are you kidding? It's been the most fantastic thing. I've traveled everywhere. I've met the most wonderful, interesting people. It's really helped me. And I just think that sometimes we have to just push away the noise, push away the naysayers, push away people who are trying, to put their own despair or lack of belief onto us. And I just want people to be the best of who they can be, and just follow their hearts, I guess. My grandmother used to say to me, and I really believe this deeply. I didn't get it when I was a kid, but she used to say, you have to aspire to what you admire. And I didn't know what she was talking about, but maybe 30 years ago, I really got it. I thought, the things that you really look at and feel inspired by, move towards those. Mm-hmm. It's like in Buddhism, they say, move toward the light. Mm-hmm. I'm totally into moving toward the light.
Just Karen, you're about to be 73, and Sarah, you just mentioned that you're getting close to 40. So how do you think about your own aging, or as you look ahead to the future decades?
I feel like I'm an old soul, and so whatever people believe, I feel like this is not life one for me. I feel like I'm in my 70s or 80s or whatever. I feel like I've gone through this a few times. Growing up, I've always been friends and still am with people who are much older than I am. I just relate to them better. So at this point in my life, at 40, I'm doing what Karen just said. I'm reaching for the light. I'm doing the things and really trying to roll that rock up the mountain. And there are a lot of people that are standing in the way. I mean, like, no, 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 no. But I'm like, yes. And this is the time to do it. Mm-hmm. But also, like what Karen said, I can't do all the yoga poses anymore either. Like I was taking like conducting classes for another film that I'm going to be directing, and because it's about orchestra. And I like pulled my rotator cuff, and I was like, "What's that? What's my body doing?" So that's fun. But no, I think finding the light and remembering what you love, why you love it, what your mission is, and pursuing it, no matter how internal doubt or external doubt is coming in at you. Mm-hmm. Keeping it out, like Karen said, keeping it out and just staying focused on your mission and the good people in your life who are championing you. I try to keep that as my heart.
Well, I can see why you two souls work together so well. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful collaboration. Gail, I'm sorry.
Can I brag on Sarah for like...
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So when I did A Tree, a Rocket, Cloud, she came onto the set of A Tree, a Rocket, Cloud last year to work on the set to do whatever we needed her to do. And it was the first time she was ever on a film set. And she was so turned on by just seeing how a film was made that within a year she had made her her own short film, which went out to film festivals and won awards. Within another year, she was directing a film that she had co-written, I think, with a friend, and that came out and was a wonderful film. Then she did her second film,
Our film.
our film, A Stage of Twilight, and she's since done a third film, all within a period of 5 or 6 years. It's just been extraordinary to watch her growth. She found her something that she loved, and she just moved towards it in the most remarkable way. And I've been around a long time, and I've never seen anybody be able to accomplish what she's accomplished. It's really quite extraordinary.
Well, just a micro gush on Karen too. I mean, like in 2016 with a Tree Rock a Cloud, being under the I wasn't under the tutelage, but like watching Karen take that chance that you've never been a director and seeing how you operated and worked with and collaborated with the actors and young actors, cinematographer, all the different people, and you did that with grace and authenticity. And so watching that process, that was really inspiring for me. And so, I mean, Karen, you've been like a mentor for me, and I think you've met a mentor for many people, I'm sure. And so to me, I want to remember that and know that and feel that, and also pass the torch down to other people so that they can feel that fire, So I loved working on Tree Rock Cloud.
You two support each other so beautifully. Really, you're so lucky to have each other.
Yeah. We're lucky to have you as part of the Women Over 70 community now. So thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Yes, thank you. And listeners, because of your loyalty, our numbers continue to grow. Still, we'd like to see more of you at our monthly online programs. So make your voice heard as together we change the conversation about women aging. And visit womenover70.com.